It's Monday morning, the start of another week at Red Bank Middle School. Teacher Janelle Melton has something special planned for her fifth graders. The students take their seats, but Janelle doesn't show up.
School had been in session for a couple weeks, and President Obama had did a speech about education. She was gonna bring her class to my class, and we were gonna play the speech inside the classroom.
Janelle taught social studies, had a passion for history, and also knew how to teach it to students to get them interested in it. And her enthusiasm about history, it transferred to the students. They loved it.
I knew Janelle in Trenton when we were young. Her elementary school was across the street from my house. And I used to talk little junk to her and, flirt with her a little bit, things of that nature. Once I graduated from college and I started working as a counselor for school-based youth service, and she was also a teacher, and I saw her, I was like, wow, she looking good. She was the one. And I felt like I should put a ring on her hand. Me and Janelle got married in Jamaica August 28th, 2003. I was excited and stuff, like I'm really married.
A happy home life and rewarding careers. It appears Janelle and Michael have a solid foundation. But 3 years after their wedding, that foundation starts to crack.
She cared about me tremendously. It was just like, I had never met nobody that was so into me like that. Whatever I needed, she was right there. But the way I was raised, later on, it kind of made me feel uncomfortable because I wasn't used to that much affection. That's why I filed for divorce. Most of the people probably thought that she wanted to divorce me, but she wouldn't have never left me. She told me that. So we still saw each other all the time, and we talked on the phone every day.
Half the school day slips away, and there's still no sign of Janelle. The school secretary asks Michael to check on the missing teacher at her home in Neptune City, about 20 minutes away.
I pull up at the house and I see the car in front of the house. So I feel kind of relieved because I know she's at least home. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna bang on this door, yell out her name, tell her to get up and tell her to go to work. I yelled out her name, it was no answer. And then I tried the doorknob and the door was open. And I went in and I was still yelling out her name. And I made the quick left to go to the room. And then when I walked in the room, that's when I saw her on the floor. When I found her, she had her nightgown on, and I saw a little bit of blood at the top of the nightgown, and her face looked like it had makeup on it. So I immediately thought that she fell when she was doing her makeup. And then that's when I picked up the phone and I called 911 and I told them to hurry up and come over. When they came, the first person went up to her and he was like, miss, ma'am. He felt her neck, and then that's when he told me she was dead. I talked to the secretary, and I'm like crying hysterically and stuff. Then I told him, like, the guy says she's dead.
It was evident to the detectives involved that Janelle Melton was the victim of a brutal beating, and she was tortured.
Because of how physical the crime scene was, how brutal it was, we believed it was a male more than one.
The kitchen dinette area had a window, which I noticed immediately as a point of forced entry. Directly under that window, on one of the chairs, was a footwear impression where someone came through the window and stepped on that chair. Throughout the house, we noticed that there were no candles. We know that the victim was not a smoker. There were no cigarettes, there were no ashtrays. But at the base of that window, we located a pink-colored lighter, and the lighter itself seemed to be out of place.
At first, the detectives started out like they was trying to get information and ask me about our relationship. And then when I started answering the questions and telling them, then they started getting a little invasive. Even if they was trying to come off of me like crazy and stuff, I just still was answering their questions because I knew I didn't do nothing.
There was no reason for Michael to ever be involved in anything like this. He still had a wonderful relationship with Janelle. Although they were ex-spouses, They didn't act like ex-spouses. They had a really nice personal and working relationship.
Investigators might have moved on from Michael, but the media hasn't.
Now, all of this time, I'm thinking that I'm being truthful and helping them, like telling them everything they needed to know. And then 2 days later, when a newspaper article came out, that's when I knew that something was wrong. It said she was found. It didn't say who found her. And in the last paragraph, it said she was estranged from her husband. And when I saw the word estranged, I said, whoa. Then it said their divorce was supposed to be final October 6th. And this was like September 16th. So now I'm like, oh my God. They trying to say I killed her.
Forensic tests on the crime evidence are murky. There's no clear-cut answer on the boot print, and techs can't lift a usable fingerprint from the latex gloves.
In the case of the cigarette lighter, DNA-able evidence was recovered, but they were unable to identify who the major contributor was on that item. As a result, I requested that we transport that evidence to the New York City Medical Examiner's office for additional DNA analysis.
Janelle's family braces for the third holiday season without her. Finally, though, there's a break. Techs find DNA on the lighter.
They were able to identify the major contributor to the DNA as Gregory Jean-Baptiste.
We're trying to say that your DNA is at the scene.
Jean-Baptiste denies everything, and there are no witnesses. The case of the teacher who never showed up for class goes as cold as the ice in the Red Bank Armory. Tired of being cloaked in suspicion, Michael can't wait for police any longer. He reaches out to a friend to help him clear his name.
If something happened in Brighton Arms right there, the streets talk. I knew I couldn't go out there and get information from anybody because I'm not from there. So I knew he could. He called this guy over and he told the guy like, yo, this my man's. He just want to know what happened to his wife. It's driving him crazy. We came back 2 days later and the guy told me what happened.
So information had come off the street that individuals, gang members, were looking to rob a drug dealer named David Munch, an individual who lived directly next to Janelle.
He said that the guy that lived next door to her had $15,000 in the freezer and some drugs in the house, and the girlfriend was running her mouth at a party, and some stick-up kids heard her at the party. So they came to rob their house, and then they went to the wrong house. And then I guess they assumed that Janelle was the girlfriend.
The information coming into me was that these individuals, Ebenezer Byrd, Gregory Jean-Baptiste, and Jerry Spaulding, with a female, committed this horrific homicide.
Detective Scott Samus and Matthew Quagliato want to question Narika Scott, the girlfriend of Ebenezer Byrd.
The video speaks for itself. The video shows her cooperation, how scared she is. Narika said that when she was at a prison visit with Ebenezer Byrd, he had confessed to her that him, Gregory Jean-Baptiste, Jerry Spaulding, were involved in the murder of Janelle Melton.
So he says it's him and Jerry Spaulding, and he's with a girl. Do you know the girl if I showed you a picture?
Elizabeth Pinto.
Elizabeth Pinto was a former girlfriend of Ebenezer Byrd, and she turned out to be the key witness in this case.
How you holding up? Okay. You all right?
Matt and I bring her to one of the Perth Amboy Police Departments, and we go live. And probably the most important interview of my life.
So tell me about in September, early September, what happens?
You could see there's a little bit of fear in her eyes. She is very trembly in her voice. She's very standoffish. She really doesn't want to talk about it.
They all get dressed up in black, as they, done before, and they tell me to drop them off. I drop them off at a location.
Let's slow it down a little bit.
I go over with pictures of these guys. Who's this? That's Ebenezer Byrd. Who's this? Gregory Jean-Baptiste. Who's this? Jerry Spaulding, And you continue to have her ID these guys.
Where did they tell you where they were going?
They just told me to drive. They told me where to go.
Gregory Jean-Baptiste, Jerry Spalding, and Ebenezer Byrd are charged with first-degree felony murder, second-degree robbery, conspiracy, and unlawful weapons charges. All three men maintain that they are innocent and are not responsible for the murder of Janelle Melton.
She was a valued member of the community, and no one deserves for this to happen to them. But of all people, it's the fact that it happened to Janelle. It's even worse.
When this happened, it was like it reignited me, my hope. Like, wow, you mean she could get justice?
Throughout the trial, there's contentious motions going on between the defense and the state. They tried to make it look like Mike Melton did it, and that clearly didn't happen based on the evidence. Police tested so many different items of evidence and went through so much forensic testing, and yet still the defense says, well, what about this? They didn't test this, or they didn't do that. They could have done this. What if, that type of thing. So we had to counteract that.
DNA found on the lighter puts Gregory Jean-Baptiste at the scene. Phone records place all three men at Janelle's apartment complex on the night of the murder. Ebenezer Byrd, Gregory Jean-Baptiste, and Jerry Spalding are all found guilty of first-degree murder, robbery, conspiracy, and weapons charges.
Once I heard the first guilty, I just knew that it was gonna be guilty, 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 guilty. Then it was just like, yes. I remember doing that fist bump thing, like, real happy, like, yes, like, it's over.
When I heard it, I was at school. I couldn't contain myself. I ran into the principal's office, who had a relationship with Janelle and loved her, and I told her, and we just started hugging and crying. We just started hugging and crying.
Gregory Jean-Baptiste, Ebenezer Byrd, and Jerry Spalding are all sentenced to life in prison. Despite their convictions, all three men still claim to be innocent. In exchange for her cooperation, Elizabeth Pinto is allowed to plead guilty to conspiracy and is sentenced to probation.
On that day, 2009, 2 people died. Not only she died, but I died too, because I wasn't the same person after that.
I miss her. I guess I'll always miss her. The pain and the anguish has diminished, but the missing her, that's still right there. It's right there.